Have you ever found yourself saying something to your children, only to notice a sudden change in their expression? Maybe their smile fades, or they give you a polite nod, but something in their eyes tells you they aren't happy. It happens so fast that you might not even realize what you said that upset them. You were just speaking your mind, sharing your thoughts. Nothing wrong with that, right? But here's the thing, as we get older, the way we communicate with our children can either bring us closer to them or create distance without us even realizing it. Aging is a beautiful journey, and one of its greatest gifts is the wisdom we've gathered over the years. But sometimes, that wisdom comes with a habit of saying things that, although well-intended, can unintentionally hurt our children. And when that happens, they may start to visit less often, call less frequently, or avoid deep conversations with us. Not because they don't love us, but because certain words, certain phrases, make them feel burdened, guilty, or frustrated. Today, we're going to talk about 4 things you should avoid saying to your children if you want to maintain a happy, loving relationship with them. This isn't about walking on eggshells or holding back your feelings. It's about choosing words that bring connection instead of distance, warmth instead of misunderstanding. Let's start with the first thing: you never visit me anymore. It's natural to miss our children, especially as they grow older and get busy with their own lives. You may remember a time when they were always around, when you were their whole world. But now they have jobs, families, responsibilities, things that pull them in different directions. And when we say, "You never visit me anymore," it might come from a place of longing, but to them, it can feel like an accusation. They hear guilt. They hear blame. And instead of feeling excited to come see us, they might start to feel pressured, like they're failing us in some way. A better approach? Try saying, "I love spending time with you. When can we catch up?" This simple shift in words changes the entire feeling of the conversation. Instead of making them feel guilty, it makes them feel wanted and appreciated. It shows them that their presence brings you joy, not disappointment. Now, let's talk about something even more common, something we often say without realizing its impact. "After all I've done for you." It's true, we've done a lot for our children. We've raised them, sacrificed for them, loved them unconditionally. And sometimes, when we feel unappreciated or overlooked, this phrase slips out. But when we say, "After all I've done for you," it doesn't remind them of our love. It makes them feel like they owe us something. Love, after all, is not a debt. Our sacrifices as parents were never meant to be a transaction, and deep down, we don't want our children to feel obligated to us. We want them to come to us out of love, not guilt. So instead of saying this, try something different. Instead of reminding them of what you've done, tell them what you appreciate about them. Say, "I'm so proud of the person you've become." This tells them that everything you've done for them was worth it, not because they owe you, but because you genuinely love seeing them happy and successful. Words have power, and the way we communicate with our children can shape the kind of relationship we have with them in our later years. Now, let's continue this conversation and explore more things we should avoid saying, things that can help us build even stronger, more loving bonds with our children. That's part 1. Let me know if you want any changes, and I'll continue with part 2. Smiling face with smiling eyes. As we continue this conversation, let's take a moment to reflect. Relationships are delicate, especially as we age. We want to feel close to our children, to remain a part of their lives, to share in their joys and even their struggles. But sometimes, without meaning to, the words we say can create walls instead of bridges. We've already talked about how saying, "You never visit me anymore," can make our children feel guilty rather than loved, and how, "After all I've done for you," can make them feel like they owe us something, rather than strengthening the bond we share. Now, let's talk about something even more common, something many parents say with the best intentions, but which can have the exact opposite effect. You should. It might seem harmless. We say it because we care. You should change jobs. You should raise your kids differently. You should visit more often. But to our children, who are now adults, these words can feel like judgment rather than advice. No matter how much life experience we have, no one likes being told what they should do, especially when they feel like they're already trying their best. Think about it. How do we feel when someone tells us what we should be doing? Even at our age, if a doctor, a friend, or even a stranger tells us, you should exercise more, or you should eat differently, it doesn't always inspire us. Sometimes, it makes us want to do the exact opposite. Our children feel the same way. The truth is, they value our wisdom more than we realize. But wisdom is best shared, not imposed. Instead of "you should," try something like "have you thought about?" or "in my experience, I've found that." This small change makes a huge difference. It turns advice into a conversation rather than a command. It shows them that we respect their choices while still offering our guidance. And speaking of respect, there's another phrase we often say without realizing how much it can hurt. When I was your age. It's natural to want to share our experiences, to compare the struggles of today with those of the past. But let's be honest, times have changed. The world is different. The challenges our children face are not the same as the ones we faced. When we say, "When I was your age, we didn't complain so much," or "When I was your age, I had to work twice as hard," it can make our children feel like their struggles aren't valid. It can make them feel unheard, as if their problems don't matter because we had it worse. But here's what we sometimes forget. Every generation has its own difficulties. Just because things were tough for us doesn't mean our children's challenges aren't real. Instead of comparing, try asking. Instead of saying, "When I was your age," say, "That sounds tough. Tell me more." This simple shift shows empathy. It invites them to open up, rather than shutting them down. The goal isn't to hold back our thoughts or opinions. The goal is to communicate in a way that keeps the door open, that makes our children want to talk to us, visit us, and share their lives with us, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely enjoy our company. And the way we speak to them plays a big role in that. If there's one thing we all want as we grow older, it's to feel connected, to feel like we still matter in the lives of our children. And yet, sometimes the things we say, even with the best intentions, can create distance instead of closeness. We've already talked about how saying "you never visit me anymore" can make our children feel guilty rather than welcome, how "after all I've done for you" can feel like an emotional burden rather than an expression of love, and how phrases like "you should" or "when I was your age" can unintentionally shut down conversations instead of opening them up. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. A phrase that, though often said out of sadness or frustration, can deeply hurt our children. And that is, "You'll understand when I'm gone." It's not that we don't mean well when we say this. Sometimes, it comes from a place of feeling unappreciated. Maybe we feel like our children don't fully understand how much we've sacrificed for them, or we worry that they don't see how much we love them. And so, in a moment of frustration, the words slip out. "One day, when I'm gone, you'll understand." But think about what this really sounds like to them. It's not just a statement, it's a painful reminder of loss. It plants a seed of guilt, a shadow of future regret. It makes them feel like they're failing us in some way, even when they are doing the best they can. And let's be honest, we don't want our children to appreciate us only after we're gone. We want them to cherish us now. We want our relationship to be filled with love, not unspoken sadness. So instead of saying, "You'll understand when I'm gone," try something different. Try saying, "I'm so grateful to have you in my life." Or, "I love our time together." These words make them feel good in the present. They create warmth, not guilt. And most importantly, they strengthen the bond we share while we're still here to enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, what we all want, parents and children alike, is simple. We want to feel valued, understood, and loved. And sometimes, the smallest changes in how we speak can make all the difference. We've now covered 3 of the 4 things we should avoid saying if we want a happier, more connected relationship with our children. But there's still one more, one that many of us say without realizing its impact. As we get older, we realize that happiness isn't just about what we have, it's about the relationships we nurture. Our bond with our children is one of the most precious things in life. And while love is always there, the way we communicate can either bring us closer or create silent distance. We've talked about phrases that can unintentionally hurt our children, words that create guilt, obligation, or frustration instead of love and connection. But there's one more phrase we need to be mindful of. It may seem small, but it carries more weight than we think. I don't want to be a burden. Now, you might wonder, what's wrong with saying this? Isn't it thoughtful? Doesn't it show that we don't want to inconvenience our children? Yes, it does. But here's the problem. When we say, I don't want to be a burden, we think we're easing their worries, but we might actually be making them feel helpless. Imagine your child hearing these words from you. What they hear isn't just a statement, it's an invisible wall going up. They might want to help, but now they hesitate. They might worry that if they offer support, you'll feel uncomfortable or ashamed. Instead of bringing you closer, this phrase can make them pull away. But here's the truth, you are not a burden. You are a parent. You are family. And family isn't about being convenient or inconvenient. It's about love, support, and sharing life together. So instead of saying, I don't want to be a burden, try saying something like, I appreciate your help, or, I love spending time with you. These words don't create guilt or distance. Instead, they invite warmth, connection, and reassurance. Because the reality is, our children want to help us. Just like we took care of them when they were young, they want to be there for us now. Not because they have to, but because they love us. And love isn't a burden. Love is a gift. So as we move forward in life, let's remember, the words we choose matter. Instead of words that create guilt, let's choose words that invite joy. Instead of words that build walls, let's choose words that open doors. At the end of the day, what we truly want is simple, to be close to the ones we love. And that starts with how we speak, how we listen, and how we make each other feel. So let's cherish the moments, speak with kindness, and build relationships that bring happiness not just to our children, but to ourselves as well. Because life is too short for regret. But it's just the right length for love.